Coward, letdown, deadbeat, fraud. These are some of the words that I've heard recently to describe Monkey D. Dragon ever since we got the Kuma flashback and we saw Dragon make the decision to not rescue his, at the time, Eastern Forces captain, Ginny, who had been taken to Marijoa by the Celestial Dragons. Since the beginning of One Piece, we have been exposed to multiple heroic characters such as Luffy, Shanks, and Whitebeard, who routinely go to war against the mightiest of forces, all for the sake of the people who they love. Yet here, we have Dragon not doing the exact same thing that these characters do when one of his own lieutenants was kidnapped. This left many readers disappointed with Dragon, calling him the biggest letdown of a character, and a character who is too cowardly and who doesn't care about his subordinates, and thus will let anything happen to them, let all of his people do the work, and get all of the glory. Is this correct? Hell no! Are you out of your mind? Do you morons really think Dragon is in the wrong for prioritizing the revolution across the world to save all the civilians when these bum-ass pirates are doing fuck all until shit hits the fan for them personally? Let me ask you a question. Let's say we're in Nazi Germany during the height of the Holocaust and you have two people witnessing it. Person A sees it and decides that it is wrong for anyone to be treated this way, especially based on their existence, and dedicates their life to building an entire militia to opposing the Nazi government and stopping this genocide. Then you have Person B. Person B sees the Jews being lined up in a concentration camp, and honestly, while he's a bit horrified, he doesn't care until one of his Jewish friends ends up in a camp, and then he decides to do something about it. And even then, only in regards to that specific concentration camp, and not the Holocaust and Nazi Germany as a whole. Who would you say is the more heroic character in this situation? Person A, right? That is Dragon. As Mr. Morge, shout out to the GOAT, put it perfectly in his video, Nobody Understands Dragon. These characters that we love in One Piece, Luffy, Shanks, Whitebeard, they aren't ignorant to the evils of the world government or the atrocities they commit on a regular basis, ranging from all kinds of crimes from murder to slavery to sexual abuse to censorship to genocide and so on and so forth. They do these things for sport, yet none of these pirates have ever dedicated themselves to actually stopping the world government or taking down the celestial dragons. The only times they have actually entered into conflict with them is when the government or the celestial dragon's actions have gone against the pirates' interests, hurting Luffy's friends, executing Ace, who was Whitebeard's son, getting in the way of Shanks' agenda, whatever that may be. These characters know far too well what the celestial dragons do, but they are more than content in sitting on the sideline until it suits them. The only party that has actively dedicated itself to fighting against this oppressive force, not just for their friends and family, but for the whole world, for no other reason than the fact that it is the right thing to do, is Dragon and the Revolutionary Army. The other argument I see is that the revolutionaries should just storm Marijoa. This argument doesn't work. Dragon is not Luffy. He is not the main character of the story and does not have the luxury of having himself and his men literally being saved and carried by plot armor throughout the story. In fact, when you think about it, not including the prologue, Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates' adventures should have ended a long time ago, and it only didn't because so many people and so much plot armor were there to save their asses in the process. In Logtown alone, Luffy should have died twice, once by Buggy's hand and once by Smoker's hand, and was both times saved by Dragon. Aokiji could have killed Luffy, but didn't as a favor to Garp and out of respect for Luffy. Do you think that if that were Akainu or Kizaru, they would have hesitated? In Eni's lobby, the only reason any of the Straw Hats survived was because their freaking ship came to life and sailed itself to sea to rescue them. In what world is that not plot armor? Kuma spared Luffy and his crew out of loyalty to Dragon. Then later on in Sabaody Archipelago, Kuma once again saved Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates, not just out of respect and admiration for Nika, but out of respect for Dragon and his revolution. In Impelled Down, Ivankov would not have broken out of prison with her men and aided Luffy in his quest to save Ace during Marineford War, had it not been for the fact that Luffy was Dragon's son. When you stop and think about it, Luffy shouldn't have even made it into the Grand Line, much less the New World. He and his crew should have died over 5 times by now, and in over half of those cases, it's Luffy's connection to Dragon that literally saved the Straw Hat Pirates. As for why Dragon doesn't face the Celestial Dragons directly, Dragon has been building up an entire militia from the ground up with little resources, money, and personnel, more often than not composed of civilians. They have little to no fighting experience and have to be trained in the very basic forms of combat and warfare and have to be verified as trustworthy and competent, all to fight against the Celestial Dragons at the right time. Because if things go wrong even once for them, then that will be it for the Revolutionary Army. Tell me, if overthrowing the Celestial Dragons and the world government is so easy, why hasn't Luffy invaded Merijoa the moment he found out Vivi was missing? And so help me, if I hear any of you say that it's because of what Zoro said, I will crash out. Looking at you, JD Legend, and all of you dragon-facing East memers. I was not aware that Zoro was the captain and that Luffy was his little sidekick. Not to mention, Zoro's argument doesn't even make sense. Zoro's argument is that Luffy did the right thing by trusting Ace to have his adventure and coming to save him at the last minute. Except that this thought process is exactly what got Ace killed. So again, it is crazy that people actually believe that Dragon is a fraud. This is a man who has been committed to building the biggest militia the world has seen in over 800 years, who has taken down several kingdoms that were allied to the Celestial Dragons and provided them with resources. A government that managed to defeat Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom. And now Dragon is being labeled a fraud because he decided that the revolution of the people matters more than one of his own subordinates, because he didn't invade a place to fight the Marines, the God's Knights, and the Gorosei all at once. Put some respect on Dragon, because in a world of pirates selfishly seeking adventures and treasures, a dystopian world government catered to the sociopathic bourgeoisie and a military institute that maintains and protects the system, Dragon is the only one who actually cares about freeing the world and has dedicated his resources, his time, his men, and his life to freeing the world and making a society that is equal for all people.